Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to the Scandinavian Female Empowerment Summit. Jannik and I are so happy and honored that you are joining us and that you are taking time out of your schedule to give yourself the gift of letting yourself learn and be inspired by a lot of amazing female Scandinavian teachers who all will share their journeys and also provide you with their tools and strategies on how to manifest your deepest dreams and desires within feminine power and through the heart. Today, our focus of the interview is the mind. And with us today from Norway, we have Kathrine Aspaas. Kathrine is a writer, speaker, and a journalist. She used to work as a critical financial journalist, and now she works to transform our world to a place with more peace and joy. Among the books Kathrine wrote is The Age of Generosity. And Katrina, that is a lovely title. And I just want to say welcome, Katrina. It's nice to be with you.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm sitting in my living room in Oslo, and it's a beautiful weather, and my dog is lying next to me, and she's very peaceful, and I'm excited for this interview, I have to say.
Oh, sounds great. It's so nice to be with you. Katrina, today we will talk about what it means to be generous and how it can change our life. And as I just mentioned, you have written this book, The Age of Generosity. And it's a book about openness and how that creates freedom and relief. Would you please share your own story on how you went from this critical journalist to now working for more peace and joy?
Yes, I can do that. Yeah, I still am a journalist. I'm still a financial journalist, and but I quit because I thought, should I continue to just be critical all the time? I mean, my heart is longing for joy and and the things I love. So I quit 9 years ago, and that was awful. It was so awful to go alone out in the world and to lose that identity and to lose my voice in Norway, and it was all sorts of emotions was popping up in me, and I like envy. I was so envious of everybody because I heard so much. Envy came up, and sorrow came up, and anger and pain and shame and so many feelings. So the smooth transition that I had dreamt about, that did not happen. But, and I think I saw you were talking about the dark night of the soul and how to get over it. I think it was one of those dark nights of the soul that I came over. I had a job in Oslo, and it was my sister's birthday, and I was so envious of her. Of course, my envy was a big theme for me, and I envied her so much because she had this wonderful life. She had a husband and kids and a beautiful house, and she was celebrating with all her friends. And I was so miserable because I felt so small. I felt so lonely. But I had a job in Oslo that day, and it was interviewing. I was interviewer for 3 Norwegian authors, and the theme that day was the power of life. I mean, that was like mocking the whole situation, but I was so prepared, and there was 500 people in the audience, and I interviewed them, and the theme, our main theme was vulnerability. Vulnerability was our main theme. And as we were talking about vulnerability in different ways, it was like I was hit by a lightning that said that, Kathrine, you have to share your own vulnerability because you're in such a vulnerable place. And it's so easy to talk about and so hard to share. And so I just decided, I turned to the audience and I said, I have to just go out of my script and share with you that I have one of the worst days in my life today because I'm so envious of my sister. She has a wonderful life and a husband that loves her, children that loves her, and I am single and I have no children and I have no job and I just envy her so much. And I could feel, what happened was that the audience was applauding. And someone said, "Bravo!" And I was like, what is happening here? And in that moment, my whole project was born, actually. Because when my envy, which is the lowest of feelings, when my envy could get applauded by a big audience, I thought there's something going on here that I have to dig deeper into. And so I began digging into vulnerability and what it creates for us, what it means to us. And of course, it took me not long to find Professor Brené Brown. Are you familiar with her?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Of course you are. Yeah. So she has been my guiding star ever since.
Well, Kathrine, it is. I think it's a very inspiring story that you just share with the audience. I mean, stand up on stage and telling that you are having this feeling of envy, despite it's one of the lowest feeling, as you just mentioned. I think that is pretty brave and very. It really inspired me that you could do that. So. Thank you for sharing.
But it was the changing point of my life. Just taking ownership to that feeling and really own it and start exploring it. What is it? What's going on? And just I could sense a kind of relief in the audience that someone actually talked about this in public. And so we can, it's kind of it's so important to take ownership to this feeling because we in Scandinavia we have something called janteloven. Yes. And to really that is envy, that is like envy in a big scale.
It is.
So to really do something about that culture, that kind of culture, we have to own our own strength, of course, and own our own feelings. And it was a very interesting journey with envy because when I started to work with it and turn it upside down and see what happens if I turn this envy upside down and if I try to stretch it. And what I found quite soon was that envy is actually I admire a lot of people that I envy. I admire my sister. I admire those very slim women that just they're just too slim. I envy them, but I admire them. I admire very fit people. I admire a lot of the people I envy, and so I found out that envy is actually admiration gone astray.
Exactly.
It's admiration gone astray, and that was a very it's a relieving thought, because every time envy comes my way now, because it still does, I promise you, every day. So I think, oh, that's admiration. And it turns the world into a better place to be, for me at least.
Yeah. And I guess we all do recognize the feeling of being envy. I would like to get back on this subject a little bit later. Your book is called, as I mentioned, The Age of Generosity. And while reading it, I notice, among a lot of things, that you write, it's not about giving everything away. So could you please share with the audience, what do you mean by being generous?
What I mean by being generous, that is being open, being being as transparent as we dare to. Being generous is allowing people to fail, because we all fail, and allowing ourselves to fail, that's very generous. And we need to fail to do anything of importance, anything difficult. There's no difficult things without failing. So being generous is about it's a lot about failure, and allowing failure, allowing the imperfect. That is generous. And it's generous to listen, deep, empathic listening to other people. That is very generous. And talking to ourselves in a nice way, that's generous. Talking to other people in a respectful, nice way, that's generous. So it has a lot to do with the culture we create, the culture we create around us. So, and taking responsibility for our own feelings and our own stories, that's generous, and it's very important.
And what I just realized, I thought of myself that I was a very generous person, which I am, talking about helping and giving. But I also realize now that you're explaining what it is for you, at least, that I very often forgot to be gentle to myself, and I guess a lot of women do recognize that as well. But that's half of being generous, I guess, or maybe even more.
It's very important. It's very, very important. Actually, my new book that is coming out in March this year. So I just actually I sent it on Monday to the press, to the print, to be printed. So I'm very excited. But that book addresses exactly what we're talking about now. It's called The Emotion Revolution, and it is about how we can talk to ourselves as if we're talking to a good friend. It's about emotional workout, how we get emotionally fit, emotionally flexible. So it's actually an emotional workout.
Oh, that
and
sounds.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to work with emotions.
And we will get back to that as well a little bit later. And congratulations with your new book. I just read the book The Age of Generosity, and it is really an inspiring book, which I would recommend everyone to read. Kathrine, you mentioned that it is very difficult to share or to show that we are vulnerable, but you did it on stage. Why do you think it is that difficult for us to be transparent or vulnerable?
Well, because we feel naked, we feel exposed, we feel we need protection, and of course we do need protection. But real, true vulnerability it's a lot of us think that it's about weakness, that being vulnerable is being weak. At least I did that. I thought that being vulnerable was being weak. When I was a financial journalist, I went with an armor to work every day. I was armored up to protect that vulnerability, because I didn't want anyone to see that I was very vulnerable. So I wanted to be, cunning. I wanted to be street smart. I wanted to be the smartest of them all. I wanted to bite hard and to have a harsh, a critical pen and all that in my shining armor of knowledge and master degrees, and that was the armor. And irony and sarcasm and snarking and armoring up. I thought that vulnerability was weakness, but I understood after that envy episode that vulnerability is actually the opposite of weakness. It's our most precise measurement of courage. It's very courageous, and the more people that go into the world without the armor, I think that's piecework in daily life.
Yes, it is.
To go out and smile to people without expecting smiles back, to address people and expect nothing back, but just to be warm. And it's not easy, but it gives a very rewarding days, very loving days, filled with magic and small things that are very beautiful, like a puppy in the park.
Yeah.
And other things as well, of course.
Yeah.
But vulnerability is very interesting to explore.
What I realize myself, that is when I am this transparent or vulnerable, it also kind of set me free. I mean, I might take the risk that somebody will hurt me, but yet, or despite that, I do prefer to tell the people how I am, what I want, what I need, because then they don't. I mean, I'm too old to play games and want the people to guess what I want or what I need, and I don't want to spend time guess what other people want or need. So I think there's a huge gift if we dare to be vulnerable.
I just got a thought, because it was very interesting what you said, Inger, that of course you risk being vulnerable, going out without armor. You risk that people can hurt you, and that, of course, that's a risk. But the difference is that I no longer hurt myself.
Exactly.
And to stop hurting myself, that is the way. That is the way for me to live. To gradually, every day, treat myself and the world with loving kindness. And this is practice, because we don't really know how to do it. And this is where it becomes very, very interesting, because it's brain science. This is brain science, and we can work with the brain now because we know how it works. And we have an old brain that wants to keep us safe, and so it has a negativity bias. It's always watching out for us, and that's actually creating a lot of fear in our lives. So a lot of the emotional work
Yeah.
is to calm the brain
Mm.
and to all the time just take responsibility and do the practice, do the work, talk to ourselves as a good friend again and again when my worries are towering up. I have a business to run here. I have a revolution to run.
Yeah, I do recognize.
There's enough worry to go around. I mean, to light a whole city, but it doesn't really suit me. It doesn't help me to worry. So all the time, just gently and mildly, kindly change that thought and that focus into, and this is like the golden practice, and that is the practice of gratefulness.
Yeah.
The practice of gratefulness is so transformative. This is also science. It's the most transformative action we can take to lighten up our own lives. And it's new to us, so it feels a little bit, when I practice gratefulness, I do it all the time. When I'm walking my dog, I think, oh God, I'm so grateful for the birds. I'm so grateful for that I can actually walk here. I'm grateful for the coffee I'm having soon. I'm grateful for my dog having, a good digestion.
Yes, exactly.
It's a practice. It's a daily practice all the time.
It is.
I'm sure you know all this, but it's really transformative.
Yeah. I notice I used to go by bus every morning, and each day I pass the sea, and at this time of the year the sun is about to rise, and I noticed that almost everyone in the bus are looking down on the mobile phone.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I have this feeling I just want to yell out in the bus and say, hey, stop. What's out, what's at the beautiful nature, and get in touch with this feeling of being grateful for what is everywhere.
But maybe we don't know that. Now I just have to jump in because I know exactly what you mean, of course. And I think it would be interesting to yell. I wish you would yell one day, because that's, it's an interruption.
I might do that.
Intervention. And it's interesting. So do that, please, and tell us about it, what happened. But still, I can be grateful for my mobile phone. I'm very, very grateful for that device. And maybe some of them were doing meditation, guided meditation from the phone. Somebody was being grateful for the phone, but of course I know what you mean. Totally.
And I'm grateful for my mobile phone as well. So. Well,
it is. We are addicted to the phone right now, I think, collectively.
Yeah.
And addiction is also a very interesting topic, because that's about feelings as well, and chemicals in the brain. So it gives us this little pleasure shock every time someone likes us, because that's what we're looking for all the time. Does somebody like me? Does somebody love me? Do I belong here? Am I safe here? That's, we're constantly looking for signs that we are wanted, and that we are loved. And so our addiction to the mobile phone comes from that. We want to see signs of that we belong.
Yeah. I just read a book about shame, which I know Brené Brown is working with as well, and I noticed that now you are talking about the hunt for likes at for instance Facebook. It is just a short relief, because as long as we don't trust our own value, it doesn't really help us on the long run. So I totally agree on. It's just a short pleasure with the likes and the yeah.
It's like sugar. It's like it's like sugar to the brain.
It is. Talking about shame, the other day I heard a speaker talking about shame, and she said that we have to make sure that the person we are talking to can handle our honesty and our transparency. Do you agree on that?
Yes, the other person can handle that's empathy to me. That's it's a sign of empathy. It's a sign of emotional musicality in a way, social musicality, that I can sense that this is a moment of intimacy where I can share, or this is not a moment of intimacy. So these are skills to know when to share, how to share, when not to share, when to listen. And I think to listen to other people share. I think that's probably our biggest mission, to listen to other people share. We have I think that's I agree on that.
And what about being very vulnerable and be prepared to share, and then be with people who are not ready for this kind of honesty? How should we act in that?
First, that's a good question. Can I talk about the difference of being vulnerable and using vulnerability?
Yeah, sure.
Because being vulnerable is something that you in a situation where that you talked about now with some people that are probably not ready or interested in your vulnerability. Being vulnerable in that situation can change them, can do something with the whole situation. But using vulnerability as a way of getting attention, we see a lot of that as well. With everyone talking about their kidneys, and I mean, you could see, and it's a kind of branding because openness is now so trendy, and I'm very grateful for that. So a part of me wants people to talk about their kidneys. Do you see what I mean? But it's also, you can see people using vulnerability to hijack the attention. And that is not vulnerability. That's using vulnerability. That's quite cynical, actually. So it's being vulnerable is something real that happens there and then, and it's not something you plan to be. It's something it just happens. And of course, you can choose to share it, or you could choose to not share it. I personally like to spend time with people that I can be vulnerable with. That's where I feel that I belong. Yeah. Some places I've been, I've tried to fit in. That's different.
It is.
To fit in is like to try to be like the other people. To belong is, here I can be myself.
Yeah, I do recognize that. Kathrine, if we decide to be and walk on this earth as a transparent and vulnerable person, where should we start doing that? Because it is difficult. I'm aware of that. So where could we start?
That's a good question. I think just start where we are. Let's say I'm in a meeting with people, and I sense something is off track, and I decide to address it in a gentle way, because I have this feeling of not understanding what's going on. That's vulnerable. Just asking, and those small gestures of vulnerability can change the whole climate in a meeting. So I think we can start where we are. It's vulnerable for me it can be vulnerable to smile to a person on the street and get an angry grin back. Vulnerability. But it's as I call it, emotional workout. Because it trains me to handle rejection. And it's a very good muscle to have.
It is.
If I'm going out in the world to be brave, and I want to be brave with my life, I'm going to meet a lot of rejections. And I need to practice. So going out and smile to people, talk to people on the bus. I mean, not like I want to invade them.
No.
Just being in contact is vulnerable. So start with small things.
I actually saw a video on YouTube a day. It was a young guy who decided to train this way of being rejected, and he trained that for 100 days, and every day. That's the way to do it. I mean, and sit. Yeah, of course. Well, training this for 100 days, you have a lot of different way of doing this. I also noticed that you mentioned that being in a meeting and not understand what has been said, and then being kind to yourself and ask or say, well, sorry, I don't understand it. Could you please describe what you mean? I noticed that in your book you used a citate from Astrid Lindgren saying, be brave, not a coward. And actually I think being brave is be aware of if you are brave in a small scale as a way to start.
That's where everything starts. Yeah. And being brave, being vulnerable, because we have a wonderful body that speaks to us all the time. And if we listen, we can see, this is a moment of vulnerability. We can listen to our heart, because our heart is always starting to beat faster. And when our heart is starting to beat faster, that's a sign. It's not a sign that I'm a coward. It's a sign that here is a possible moment of bravery. I'm up against a possible moment of bravery here. This is vulnerable to me. My body tells me that, okay, this takes place now, and I'm a little bit nervous. Like speaking up at an event, for instance, very vulnerable, and can be brave. So our body tells us when we have some bravery in front of us, and we can choose not to go there, of course. We have to go around and be brave and vulnerable all the time. I mean, you have to sit at home and just not be in either. We need a lot of downtime. But just listen to the body and be curious and kind and say, wow, my body is telling me something.
Yeah. And we can train that, which you describe in your new book, which we will be back on. Kathrine, one thing I really admire you, and what really inspired me when I watching your TED talk, and you talked about a little bit earlier, this feeling of envy and how you'd transform it and turn it upside down. And instead of being envy, use it for inspiration to reach my own goal. Could you somehow describe that a little bit further?
How I do it, or how?
Yes, how you manage to transform your feeling of envy to admire your sister and use it for inspiration to transform this lower feeling.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a long
Now
question.
now I understand. But that was a very vulnerable moment for me to not understand totally your question. But now I understand.
Thanks God you are so brave.
When I feel envy, I still feel it. I feel it when I see very successful people. I can feel it, yeah, daily actually. And then when I notice that feeling, I say, hey, it's about awareness. I say to myself, hey, isn't that feeling, that was painful, but isn't that actually admiration gone astray? So I very quickly ask my brain, ask myself, this is admiration. And sometimes I can actually write a post on a PM on Facebook to that person that I am envious about and say, how amazing you're doing this, because it is admiration. So I can turn that envy into energy and fuel another person's day and brighten my own day as well.
Yeah.
So that's one way of doing it. And it can be done with other feelings as well. That's my new book. Because it's not just envy that you can turn upside down. Sorrow. Also. Sorrow we can turn upside down. And what happens when we turn, I just have to say this, what happens when we turn, I have to ask you, what happens if we turn sorrow upside down? What do you find there?
Sorrow. I'm not quite sure at the moment what that word means.
That's very vulnerable to say. I'm not quite sure. I don't know. That's good. Bravo. Brava.
A moment of brave.
What I find in my own sorrow is that it's love. It's very often sorrow is the price I pay for having loved.
Yeah.
Something. It can be love for a pet. It could be love for a dream, and the dream doesn't come true. We love that dream. So sorrow is actually love, and so tears are love coming out of the eyes. So tears are not dangerous. Tears are very good for us. It's good for us to cry. We cry too little. We should cry much more.
Well, you should spend some time with me.
Often, you're a crier. Thanks.
Okay.
I have to. Can I quote my guiding light, Brene Brown?
Yeah, sure.
Latest book. It's called "Braving the Wilderness," and she says that. No, I lost it. No, she says about crying. She says crying with strangers can save the world.
That's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. It's so powerful. When we cry with strangers, that's piecework.
It is. Yeah. Especially, I mean, in my opinion, I work to create peace in the world, but I also realize that it has to take the beginning in myself.
Yes.
So start crying. I will make peace in myself.
It's a very good point.
It
Because the emotional revolution is actually going on inside me.
Exactly.
So I'm not trying to. I'm trying to teach, but we teach what we most need to learn. So
yes, we do.
so I teach emotional workout. It's because that's what I need most to get things done, to be brave with my life. So I need it myself. That's why I work with these things.
And I would like to say that after watching your TED Talk, I found myself sitting with some friends one day, and I feel this envy, and I thought, well, maybe I should try doing what Kathrine asked me, and it really helped me, and I recognize the fuel for reaching out for my own dreams and my own goals, instead of sitting being angry and filled of this dark envy. Yeah, it really so I encourage everybody who listen to this, try investigate these feeling and see if you can turn them upside down. It really helped me.
So happy. It makes me so happy that it can actually work. It works.
Yes, it really does.
And it's so powerful. Empowering. It's empowering.
Yes, it is. Katrina, I would like to ask you to share some good advice for the audience. I also would like you to tell us a little bit more about your new book, because I figure out, or think that it's full of practice we can do. So could you please tell me about it?
I can tell you about it. I'd love to tell you about it because I'm so full of it. It's about the emotion revolution. And that is actually that we're moving towards a world that takes feelings seriously. It's going on around us. And what the work that you're doing is part of it, I feel. The work that Jannica are doing is part of this emotion revolution. So it's about also the workplace we're dealing with now, and the fourth industrial revolution. Can I talk about that just a little second?
Sure.
Because there's a lot of talk about artificial intelligence and new technology, and how robots can replace 800 jobs by 2030. And this is so interesting because it's happening. And what's actually happening is that all the dull, hard, cold work with numbers and stuff that we've been doing as human beings, it will be replaced. So the question is, what are we going to do? What are humans going to do? And we are going to make the world a better place for each other. We're going to learn soft skills. So there was just this huge summit, the World Economic Forum in Davos, was addressing this year, that we need human skills, we need soft skills in this time, and that is the emotion revolution. So everything we teach our children should be different from the machines. And that is believing, that is independent thinking, that is teamwork, how to care for others, how to care for ourselves. That's the emotion revolution, and it's happening.
It is. In your book now, I mentioned the book again, The Age of Generosity.
Yeah.
You are writing something about we are going from a society where we talk about people of what they are doing, and now that is a shift in the world. So instead of saying that people are farmers or hunters or whatever, which means we are human doing, then we will become human being. Is this a part of what you just described?
Yeah, that's interesting. We are human beings. So there's a lot of fear now in the world because of this shift and because of technology. But what's really happening is it's freedom. It's freedom from doing to being. And I just saw a Japanese, a CEO of a large Japanese company called Alibaba. And he said that in 30 years, we will be working 4 hours a day. And I believe him. 4 hours a day and just 4 days. So it's such a big shift. And so much of our lives will be human beings. We will sit around the fire and tell stories, and we will take care of each other and take care of ourselves. The health industry will be big. Everything connected to taking care of ourselves and each other will be a big industry. So
that sounds interesting.
Scary.
It's
but scary.
Yeah. Well, Kathrine, if we should try to sum up this talk, well, it is about being brave and we could somehow transform the feeling from envy to inspiration, or from suffer to realize we loved. It's also about being awake when you have this feeling. If we should share free tools or good advice for the audience, where to start today after listening to this, what step would you suggest?
Oh, my 3 most English is it's really vulnerable too. Sometimes I can't find the words. But my top 3 would be: number 1, talking to yourself as if you were talking to a good friend, again and again. Raise your brain, work with your brain. So you just notice gently when you start picking on yourself and saying those nasty things that we all do. Just gently say, "Oh, I don't have to do this. I can talk to myself as if I was a friend." That's number 1 for me. And number 2 is maybe a little. Number 2 is also, it's easy to do. Let go of expectations. It's not easy to do. It's very hard to do. Let go of expectations. Try to just drop them. See what happens. Expectations. It's a highway to disappointment. So just drop expectations, and if you want something to hang on to, try hope instead.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, try hope. Because hope is large, is round. Hope is generous. Hope lets you try again and fail and do it again. So drop expectations. Try hope. Try hope. And number 3, practice gratefulness all the time. You can never overdo it. And it can be anything.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm so grateful that that you said yes to spend time helping us doing this summit. It has been such a pleasure talking to you. I'm really looking forward to read your new books. Kathrine, I just have to say it once again. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your your good advice and to being open and vulnerable together with me, because I think speaking English is a bit difficult, but we manage.
Yeah.
So
this is a new way of speaking English,
it
with a
is.
Scandinavian style.
It is.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you too. I'm so grateful that you actually raise these questions, because it's powerful.
Oh,
So
thank you so much. I also want to say thank you to those who are listening to this. And remember that you have access to the day's videos for 24 hours. But if you don't have time to watch it or listen, don't worry, because you can get full access to all the materials for 6 months. Just go to our websites and read more. And then, once again, Kathrine, thank you very much. I wish you a pleasant, nice day.
yes,
And and
and
this,
good luck to everybody. Good luck to everybody with going out and being brave in your lives.
yeah, exactly.
So much.
So let's
Oh,
encourage everyone to do that. And then I just want to say thank you for watching, and remember to shine the light that you are.
yeah.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.